How many of you have operated ProPresenter before? A few? How many of you really understand how ProPresenter works? Andrew's like, I've spent a lot of time in here. ProPresenter, back in 2020, came out with ProPresenter 7, and it has been kind of a game changer, but it has also upped the complexities pretty significantly. And then every update they come out with also kind of ups the complexity. So what we're going to do is try to break this down to the most basic, and then how to operate a service here. Because the reality of ProPresenter is, even though at Churchfront we kind of set out all new installs up really similarly, every church is different in how they like to do things. So we're going to talk about ProPresenter from the layers standpoint, all the way from the bottom to the top, and then we'll get into how you guys do it as well. At its core, ProPresenter is a media player. We've got media that has been brought to this computer that we can now play on multiple different screens. We just need to figure out how we're going to do that. So if you look over here to the right, these are all of your different layers. So we have a video input layer, which we're not currently utilizing here. So you don't have to worry about inputs. Then we've got our background layer, our slide layer, our announcement layer, our prop layer, our message layer, and our audio layer. And there's a lot of layers. Most of the time, we're living in background and slide. And if you think about it, I'm going to put a worship background up. That's a background. If we go to a song, I can put lyrics, which are on a slide, over the background. You will never have your lyrics go behind your background by accident because of the way that ProPresenter works, which is really great. But I can adjust these or clear them individually. So I can have just a background, I can have just lyrics, I can do lyrics and background, and I can actually change my background while the lyrics never change, and then vice versa. So those are sort of your main layers that we're living in. So let's talk about the announcements layer. Andrew, are you using announcements for anything?
No.
You're not using announcements, so we're going to ignore that. The announcements layer, I will tell you really quickly how it works. The point of the announcements layer, so in ProPresenter, if I click on a slide and then I click on another slide, I can't have two slides playing at once, which is great because I've only got one screen. The way the announcements layer works is it actually operates as a completely different media output. So if I had a lobby TV, for instance, that I wanted to have just an announcement loop going on during the entire service, I could actually put those announcement loops up here in pre-service, click on it, and as long as I never clicked off of it on the announcement layer, it will just keep playing the whole service in ProPresenter while I'm changing all these things. So that's the main reason that layer exists. We're not utilizing that here, but it's good to know. So then we have our props layer, which can be used for a number of different things. I like to use them for lower thirds. So if we were to have a person come on stage, I could create a title and their name and their title, and I could put that on because maybe I've got a background there, but I want to send the lower third to the switcher so that can show up on the live stream. So that's one way to do it. The way you guys are using it here is really unique because you're actually using it for what's on your lyric strip up there. So what's cool is I can mess with all this stuff in here on the main screen and it doesn't change. Well, that changed my lyric strips, but that's a different reason. It doesn't change the lyric strip, but I can then come over here and change what's on that lyric strip. And the reason for that is because ProPresenter works in layers. We've got different layers of things going to different places. When we're going to go from the beginning of a service here, we're going to click on this, and you're going to notice a couple things. In this slide, I'm going to edit it real quick. All we've really got on it is this background image, and we have a text box, but we don't need it, so we're going to ignore that for a second. But then you've got on the top here, you've got a few different things happening. We're going to talk about all of them. So the first thing is just we've got edit action 25 fall welcome.jpg. That's literally just the image we're looking at. So if we remove that, you remove the image. Don't remove that. Then we have the welcome lyric strip. So you'll notice that this is a prop. So the welcome lyric strip is we're going to trigger that. Here's the cool thing. Over in props, we have this particular image. I am putting an action on this slide to make that happen. So if I were to go to prayer, but I were to click back on this slide, it automatically goes back to the welcome. So on a slide, you can not only have the slide, but you can have actions that tell what's going where. Making sense? So we've got that. Then we've got what's called the look. And then we have a macro. Let's talk about our looks real quick. At different times in the service, you might want different things on different screens. So for worship, let me go to worship because I think you've automatically got this. So when I click on that slide, you'll notice that my prop, I don't have to click a prop over here. It just automatically plays what's on that. That's because of what's called a look. So if we go here, we go to our worship look. You see all the different displays. You've got the lower thirds. We'll talk about that in a second. That's going over to your switcher. You've got your main display. That's your main LED wall. You've got your side displays, which are your TVs on the side. And you got your lyric strip. I can tell each individual screen what I want to have on it at any given time and then change that multiple times throughout the service with looks. So let's look at our worship look here. So on our lower thirds, we're going to ignore messages for a second, but we'll get there. We are showing the slide, but not the background. If we look over at, let me play some lyrics here. Over on the screen there, you can see your lyrics are put up there. So if we go back to our looks here, we are sending just the slide, but not the background. Now, if I were to click on the media layer and want to send that as well, look what just happened to the switcher. We just sent that. We don't want that. So I only want to send the slide. Then on the main display, we are only sending the media. So if I were to put the slide up, now we got lyrics because I put the slide up. If I were to get rid of the background, now we just have black screen. So we can choose what's going where. Side displays have both, which is pretty great. The lyric strip, same thing. I can choose what we have where and where it goes. So then if we were to go to sermon, I'm going to make that live. Now we change a bunch of things. One, what's on what screen, but also how it looks on the screen. We'll get to that in a minute. In our looks, we're choosing basically what element goes where. So if we were to say, let's go back to worship here. We want to show the props during worship. Theoretically, at any point, I can put a different prop up if I clicked on it manually. Then we have our layouts, which is on the same, you're not actually going to see layouts here. Layouts is a really fancy way of saying what's on the cheater screen that all of our vocalists are looking at, which are that right there. So if you look on the multi-view, so this stage display right here, this is what your layouts are going to change. So during worship, we want to see lyrics. So let's say for the sermon, our pastor wanted to see what was on the screen behind him. We can actually do what's called a screen preview. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to label this sermon. So now, right now, if you look at the stage layout right here, what your pastor sees on the screens is just the text of what's going to be on. But if we were to change the layout, add action, stage display is going to change to sermon. So now we click on that. Now what's on the stage display is just mirrored what's on your main screen. And if we were to want to change that back, we're going to edit that. Nope, I don't want to do that. I want to go to current and next. Now it's back to the way it was. So not only can you change what's on the lyric strip, the main screen, the side screens, you can also change at any point what's on the back screen. So let's say, let me give you some options for this. So obviously our worship team, they want to see the lyrics they're currently singing and the lyrics they're next singing, and probably the timer if you guys do any sort of flow moment. Like let's say I know I got 27 minutes to do worship. We've got a flow moment in the middle of this song. We got another flow moment in the middle of the next song. Well, how long I go in the second flow moment kind of depends on how long I went in the first, because I got 27 minutes regardless. So we got a timer on the screen that's going to start at 27 minutes and count down to 0. And Pastor tells Andrew, hey, if you go over 0, you're fired. He wants to see that timer. I'm being a little harsh. You're not fired. You're just a week without pay. But during the message, Your pastor wants to see his very specific timer, which it's a 35-minute message, so it's 35 minutes down to 0. And if he goes past 0, well, pastors don't get in trouble when they go past their timer. So it's a kind of an arbitrary timer, but he still wants to see it. But then we get to someone who's doing announcements, and they're doing live announcements, and they want to know what's next in the announcements, but they can't read the text from where they are. So we're going to show on one screen the slide that's currently up, and on the next part of the screen, the slide that's coming next, because they know that the white slide is for the men's breakfast, the green slide is for the children's ministry. So they're going to be able to see them both, know what's coming next. When they have the one slide and it's a black screen, they know, hey, it's the last announcement, I can be done. And by the way, they also have the arbitrary 3-minute timer that they're going to ignore, but we have the 3-minute timer on stage for them to see. We can do that in each individual element of the service in the same way that we can change what's on all of our main screens. Before we continue on, make sure to download the Churchfront toolkit at the link below for our latest gear recommendations for your church. Now back to some more training. So now we're going to get into a little bit more of our action. So I'm going to remove the action that I just added. It's the stage action. Everything else is good. So let's go to the beginning of the service. So at the beginning of the service, we do a couple things. We talked about this already. We've got the slide, we've got what's going to the welcome strip, we've got the look, which is seasonal, so we're going to call that pumpkin spice from now on. And then we have this action that's got a purple M, and that's called a macro. This is one of the really cool features of ProPresenter that also made it extremely complicated. So we've got a few different things we can do with macros. Actually, macros can be whatever you want them to be. I'm going to create one right now. So a new macro, we're going to call this a test macro. So at the beginning of the service, every time he clicks on that slide, we want to make sure that all of the timers that we have, so the pastor's timer, the worship leader timer, the announcement timer, they all get reset back to 0. So on my macro, I'm going to add the action. I'm going to go to timers. I'm going to do the sermon timer, and I can choose to start it, stop it, or reset it. So I'm going to choose reset. And so now that macro will do just that. So let me bring up, actually, we just saw that happen. Let me start my sermon timer again. We got our sermon timer happening right now. Now, if we never reset that, when the sermon comes back, that's going to be wherever it was. When I click on that macro, it changes it back to the beginning. So here's the cool thing about macros. I don't just have to click on it over here. I can drag this onto the slide. So now when I click on that slide, it's going to reset my timer. So let's say it was running here. That'll reset it. Now, let's say I wanted to, rather than reset it, I wanted to start it. I can edit that action. I'm going to edit it. Now, instead of reset, it's going to start. So now, when I click on, I haven't even had to move the macro. When I click on that, now it starts my timer. So any action that you can do in ProPresenter, you can create a macro out of. You can do as many actions or as few actions as you want. So let's also add, let's do that stage look. Let's do that sermon stage look that we created. So the stage display, we're going to change it to sermon. So now same thing, that macro is on here. We look at our stage display. We're going to start the timer, but we're also going to change the stage display. So we could have a pre-service macro that does the timer, the stage display, changes the audience look. You could have audio that was in here that was maybe your pre-service music. It would trigger that audio and automatically play it. We could set a 5-minute timer on it so that in 5 minutes it would automatically advance to the countdown. See what I mean? There's any number of things you can do it to make it easier on the operator. So here's what I think is actually the best part about macros. Macros aren't just about what's happening in ProPresenter. It's also can communicate to other programs over MIDI, which is just a fancy way of communicating. So right now, we've got all these different lighting cues that we see in here. So if I click on a macro, there's my pre-service lighting. I'm going to go to my countdown lighting, my transition lighting. Let's go to a worship look. Here's my red intro. Again, I could click on the slide and then come over here and click that. Or, so this is got a lighting cue on it. So that's got the green intro on it. So when I click this, look at that. Green background and green lighting. And I don't have to have a separate lighting operator that I am now coordinating with to say, you ready? Because if I click on this and let's say we've got red lighting, that's a little weird. Red lighting, green background. Macros really thrive in this environment with lighting as well. So from an operator standpoint, these are kind of the things you need to know, because if you click on something and something happens that you don't want it to, you're gonna right click on the slide and figure out what actions are happening. Let's say I didn't want that to be the green intro, I wanted it to be, lighting is gonna be green bridge. Now we've changed that. Okay. That's the lighting look that I'm looking for. I clicked on the slide, but what I hoped happened wouldn't happen. Let me check my actions and see what's going on with that. So let's say you're in your green song, and either, because I'm the operator, I fat fingered a pink background, or something got tweaked and we have an action to choose that. How do I either fix my lights so that they match my background, or fix my background so that it matches my lights, or get rid of the background? What are my options? I'll tell you the first and easiest thing is to just get rid of what's there because it's wrong. So remember how we talked about all these layers over here? These are called clear actions. So I can individually clear layers out. So if I want to clear the background, I hit clear background. And now we're green again. And then I can come find, okay, well, we're green, that's closer. You also have, see the big X? There's a reason there's a big X there. That's a clear all. You don't really want to do that unless you have to, because if I got lyrics up and we're in the middle of the song, but I have the wrong background, I need to get rid of that. Well, there go my lyrics too. So as we're going through a service, I'll tell you this, as an operator, remember how we talked about audio engineers? You're part of the band. Really, as a ProPresenter operator, you're part of this, the band and the message and every part of the service. When do people notice production? When you mess up. Have you ever been up here and you click on the wrong thing, or the audio guys, and all of a sudden everybody's eyes turn around and look at you? So again, we are trying to create that distraction-free environment so that people can fully encounter God when they're here worshiping. What is the best way for us to do that?
Not make mistakes.
Not make mistakes. How do we not make mistakes? Be prepared. So I love to do, if I'm on ProPresenter, I love to do what I call a service click-through before even the band gets here. Because if you're trying to do it while the band's rehearsing and they got lyrics, we got a problem. So as the ProPresenter operator, I want to come in and I want to make sure I'm going to click through every element of the service. I don't have to see, I don't have to wait 10 minutes for the countdown to go down, but I do want to click on everything to make sure that it's going to operate the way that I'm expecting it to. And if it's not, and I know how to fix it, I'm just going to fix it and tell Andrew, hey, by the way, I fixed that. We love that, because he's going to say, awesome, that's not something I had to do. If I don't know how to do that, I'm going to say, Andrew, there's an issue here. How do I fix that? And then we're going to listen really hard to remember how to do it for the next time. Although I can almost guarantee if you're only doing this once a week, you'll probably get asked about 3 or 4 times. That's okay too. So I'm going to click, again, I don't need to click through every slide, but I do want to click on any slide that has an action on it. So like this is a blank slide. I don't really need to click on it. This one has a macro on it, so I want to make sure that my macros are doing what I'm anticipating they're going to do. All right, got a bunch here. Everything's looking good. All right, next song, I expect it to turn red. Everything turned red, we're good. So every element of the service, I'm going to make sure. Now, here's one of the things I'm doing. I'm not just checking to make sure that what's on the screen is correct. We have this multi-view up because I want to make sure what's on the stage display is correct. So we're in the lyrics right now. What do you notice about the stage display? You got the wrong layout. So I want to make sure that if I go to my layouts, if we go to screens and stage, the stage display should not be on sermon, it should be on current and next. So I want to make sure that when I'm doing that, and let's do this, I'm going to add an action. We're going to do the stage. I'm going to change it to sermon. So now I click on that. My stage display is wrong. Okay. Nope, I don't want my stage display to be that. I want it to be current and next. But then every time I click on it, my stage display is wrong. I got to change the action that's embedded in that slide. So I'm going to come over to here. I'm going to my stage action. I'm going to edit it. There it is, says sermon. It should say current and next. Now when I click on it, my stage is right. So as we're doing that click through, you're checking every screen on the multi-view, because I can't see from my position those stage displays. I can't see the side screens, but I know that my side screens right now look like this. I know that my lower thirds are sending my lyrics properly. So now as an operator, you know everything is operating the way that I want it to. So now let's say we're in the songs and we're doing Yes, I Will. Andrew gets to the end of it and he does a 9-minute prayer, which means that you no longer can do the entirety of Lead Me to the Cross. So when we do Lead Me to the Cross, or he just says, hey, we're not going to do that. We're going to go right to King of My Heart. You know, because you've done a click through the order that the songs are in. So just like the audio engineers, you're part of the team. Let's talk about lyrics real quick. And this is probably, let's assume that Andrew's done everything right. Your click-through goes well. Everything's good. The service order flows like it should. Your timers are good. Life's good. Now, my job during the service is to just click through. But when I do that matters. So in the same way that I was teaching audio engineers, knowing when the guitar solo is coming up, you also want to know when the lyrics are coming up. And there's a couple of key elements to that. Number one is knowing your intro well enough to know when to bring the first line of lyrics up. I can almost always say bringing them up too early, that first line, you're never really going to have a problem bringing it up too early. Too late's going to be a problem. But if you know, hey, they're playing through the intro 3 times, right at the end of that third intro, you know, okay, I'm going to bring that up. When you're changing from slide to slide, my rule of thumb is based on the song when you're on the second to last word. So let's do this one. Savior, I come, quiet my soul, remember. I'm changing the lyric when they're singing remember. Because one, I'm already singing it, so I don't need to see it anymore. But I do need to know what's coming up next. So the second to last one, Redemption's Hill, where your blood was spilled for my ransom. So I sang that, changed it on my, but we're already on the next slide. Everything I once held dear, I count it all as lost. Lead me to the cross. See what I mean? If now you're in the congregation, where your love poured out, bring me to. If I cling it right when they're singing bring, if someone doesn't know that song, they're not singing bring. So we always want to be ahead of where the worship team is to make sure that we're on top of it. So it's relatively easy to do that while you're in the middle of a verse, although it looks like you guys don't do blank slides either, which is really nice. Sometimes you'll have a blank slide during a long interlude or something like that. Knowing when to bring it back in is important. That's why paying attention during rehearsal, knowing the songs, knowing when to come in. That is probably one of the most important things about being a ProPresenter operator is getting your lyrics at the right time. Similarly for the message, now this one you're not going to be able to rehearse, and you only, let's say you've got 35-minute message and 24 slides, well, you're changing a slide less than once a minute on average. So really at that point, it's don't be checking Facebook. I just aged myself when I said Facebook. Don't be checking TikTok. That's the new thing. Don't be looking at the NFL scores. Even if you're in the third service and you've already heard the sermon a few times, you are locked into what is happening during the message so that as your pastor is changing throughout the message, you're right on top of it. Now, unless you've got a manuscript in front of you, it is difficult to anticipate. But with this one, you're going to say, what you believe you become. You can click right on it and people are going to be able to fill their notes in. So it's similar, but you've got a little bit more leeway for when you bring it up. What happens if for the third service you decide, I want to do one extra chorus at the end of a song? How do I add that? If you go to a song, one of the things you'll notice is that these slides are color-coded. So this one says verse, and so all the ones following it in blue are the verse. This is chorus. All the ones following it in that red color are chorus. So if I come up here to the top, we've got all the information about the song. This little icon right here is what opens up your song order. Now, a lot of times you'll have different arrangements, like you've got your long arrangement, short arrangement. This is just called vertical arrangement. If we want an extra chorus at the end, you come up here to the chorus and you bring one more chorus in. If you want to delete that chorus, you click on the X. Okay, I know it has 2 choruses in here at the end, but I want one, I'm at the end, so let me pull in another one. So you can see it just adds it in. Okay. So that's how you would do that. Yep, blank slides are helpful. I like blank slides in between sections if there's space. Yep, so like you could put a blank slide in here in between if there's a guitar solo here or something like that, you put that blank slide in. And so now you can get the lyrics off the screen before you go to the last bit. So that's one way to do it as well.
So now if you change that, is that just for that service, or does it?
That will stay in the arrangement. So if we were to do a new arrangement, we're going to call this test arrangement. So the arrangement has background, verse, chorus, bridge, blank, that's it. Well, we know we want to do the first verse twice, then we want to do a blank slide, the chorus, and then we're going to go do the verse again. So now I've made my arrangement however I want to do it. So now when I go back to vertical, that's the same way it was the last time. But for my test arrangement, which is maybe for worship night, it'll be in that order. So you save arrangements based on kind of, if you know you've got two versions of how you sing a song,
Right.
you can always save two different arrangements. So that means every time you don't have to go in and make stuff, make changes. The nice thing is it's all under the same song. So if I were to go to my song library, we'll go down to Yes, I Will. Yes, I Will, we're going to put that in the 12th because we're going to play it at the end of the service as well. So that song up here has the vertical arrangement. Down here, I can give it the test arrangement. Same song, two different times in the service, but I can give it a different arrangement. So if you wanted to tag a chorus or something at the end of the service, you don't have to create a brand new song for it. All you're doing is create an arrangement. So whenever ProPresenter gives you an issue, which it will occasionally do, here's how you fix it. Are you ready? Go to ProPresenter, quit ProPresenter, and quit. And we're going to open it up again because most of the time, if there's a ProPresenter issue, it's going to do that. Last thing I want to do is we're going to talk about themes real quick. So if you'll notice, this slide, we've got 2 lines of lyrics. But when I click on it, my side screens show those 2 lines of lyrics, but my lyric strip shows 1 line of lyrics. How do I do that? This is where themes come in. So we go to More and we go to Theme Editor. We got a couple things here. One, I could change the font, which I'll change this back, I promise. Let's change it to something ridiculous. So now when I click on that, yeah, that's awful. So imagine you came in and Andrew had no sleep over the last, because you just had a baby, right? Okay, so Andrew hasn't been sleeping and he decided, hey guys, we're going to try this. And you say, no, I'm going to override him. We're going to come to the theme editor. We're going to find our Helvetica worship theme and we're going to say, Andrew, I love you, but this has to go back to Helvetica bold. So now when we come back and click on it, the theme is what changes that. So the other thing he's got, which is really cool, I like that he did this, back to our theme editor. So we got 2 lines of lyrics, but here we've got the line transform. We're going to replace the line return, which means when you hit return and create 2 lines, we're going to replace that with these 2 slashes. So when he has 2 lines hooked up here, we're going 1 line on the lyric strip. So that all happens because of the theme. And the way we get the theme to show up here is if we go back to our looks that we had at the beginning. If we go to worship, on our lyric strip, you see this little guy right here? This tells me I can add a specific theme for that element. So if I were to say, I'm going to remove the theme, which I think I need to, remove alternate theme. So I have no theme now. Yeah, that's what it looks like with no theme. Themes can be tied to slides. Themes can be tied to looks. And we're going to do lyric strip, and now we're back to where we should be. So when
the looks and the screens that you apply them to, right?
Yes. I can change a theme on a slide, mostly in the slide edit. We don't really want to get into that because that gets kind of annoying. But if we come here and we look at here, we've got an edit action. We've got worship, look, and prop clear. So if we come back over here to the macros, worship, look, and prop clear does a couple things. It clears whatever's on the main screen there. So if we had our welcome strip there, which let me go back to welcome. We got our welcome strip. When I click on this, it's going to clear that prop so that we go back to backgrounds. Okay. So that's the first thing it does. And then it also takes me to that worship look. So if I'm here and I choose a different look, so the look is going to be sermon instead. So there's my sermon look. when I click on that macro that he created, it's automatically going to take me to the correct formatting. So when you create themes, you apply them to certain looks. So if we were to go back to our looks here, we can see that on worship, our lower thirds are getting a look. They're getting the lower thirds look. Our side displays are getting a look. They're getting the side display look. And here's the cool thing. I can come to this slide. I'm going to edit the slide. I'm going to edit the font in the slide to that ugly one. But if I click on that, it doesn't matter, because the theme overrides whatever I changed in that slide. So one of the things I like to do, it depends. This is a good big screen where you guys can see the lyrics really well. I've worked on smaller laptop screens that are really hard to see. So one of the things I will do is I will create what I call an easy reading theme, and I'll make the font as big as I can on these slides, but it won't affect what's going out there.
Right.
So that as an operator, I can see it in really big, but I can make it look like whatever I want to look. So notice when I changed it here, let's say for this slide, I just can't read that. It's too small. I'm going to make this as big as I possibly can. So now I can definitely read that.
Right.
It doesn't change anything. So what I can do is I can actually choose a bunch of slides here, and I can put a theme on it so that it's my easy reading theme. So I'll create a theme called easy reading, but it doesn't change anything that happens out there. It's only what I see here. I'll show you guys one other thing. So we've got your slide transition and we've got your background transition. Right now your slide transition is set to a 0.3 second. Let me put it on a cut real quick. So if we were to cut, it's instantaneous change. We put it on a dissolve. I'm going to make it more than it needs to be. Now we've got, it's same slide. Yeah, we don't want that either. So now we're doing that. So same thing on the backgrounds, we can change, let's make it a really long transition here. We can do a really subtle transition. Let's say we have a 2-second lighting transition here. It's actually sometimes really good to do more on that because it gives our lighting a chance. But that all depends on how you want to do it. Thanks for joining us. If you would like Churchfront to come to your church to help you out with team training or to help on a project, feel free to reach out to us at churchfront.com. Make sure to like this video and subscribe for more content, and we will see you on the next one.